Hello and welcome to Town Talk. I'm your host, Rose Highland-Sharpe. This very inspirational program is brought to you by Highland Communications for storytelling, edutainment, music, and much more. Call at 910-528-0718. Stay tuned for the University of North Carolina's Black Alumni Reunion, Black Pioneers Dinner, Friday, November 10th, 2023, 6 p.m. at the Sheraton Hotel, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. What a great celebration, including the spotlight on some of the athletes of UNC-Chapel Hill and the Black Alumni Reunion. David C. Belton, the class of 75. David, of course, UNC's second African-American male cheerleader. He has the distinction of being selected an All-American cheerleader by the International Cheerleading Foundation. Reggie McAfee, class of 73. Reggie, of course, was an ACC champion in the indoor and outdoor 1 mile, a cross-country champion, current UNC 800-meter record holder, 4-time NCAA All-American in the mile and 1,500-meter Olympic trial finalist in 1972. On May 12, 1973, he became the first African-American to break the 4-minute mile with a record of 3.57.8 minutes. Wow. Judge Stanley Lee Maddox Jr. Judge Stanley Lee Maddox Jr., class of 72. Here comes the judge. As one of the first 5 grant and aid African-American student athletes to sign at Carolina, Maddox was among the first wave of students during the national push to integrate U.S. colleges and universities in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He earned both ACC and NCAA honors for his achievements on the football team. As a sophomore, he made the All-ACC team as a defensive end. He joined the U.S. Navy in 1979 and served for 14 years. He battled addiction along the way to alcohol and other drugs. As a result of his hard work in the 12-step program and his determination, he has been sober since 1992. James Webster, class of 72. Jim Webster began his college football career as a player at Carolina in 1968. A standout defensive player for Carolina, he was named the most valuable defensive player in the 1971 Gator Bowl. The following year, he received the ACC's Brian Piccolo Award and the Frank Porter Graham Award as one of the top 12 seniors at UNC. Along the way, of course, in his coaching career, began in 1973 working with the junior varsity program at North Carolina. He went on to coach linebackers at Dartmouth, defensive ends at Wake Forest, and much more. His coaching career continued in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1995 and the St. Louis Rams in 1999. In his first season back in Chapel Hill, Webster had an immediate impact on the defense. Under Webster's guidance, defensive end Julius Peppers won both the 2001 Lombardi and Benerick Awards, becoming the first Tar Heel ever to win a major college football award. The program includes opening remarks, Judge Donnie Hoover, class of 71, the current chair of the Black Pioneers Committee, video greetings by the state of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper, class of 79, and J.D., class of 82. Invocation by Arto White, class of 65, a committee member, Black Pioneers Committee, and a memorial tribute. Brother Walter A. Jackson, class of 67, committee member, Black Pioneers Committee. Acknowledgments and much more. What a beautiful evening. The Black Pioneers Committee includes Lewis Burton, class of 65, Karen Garris, Algin N. Holloway, 68, Donnie Hoover, 71, Edith Hubbard, 66, Walter A. Jackson, 67, Judge S. Maddox Jr., 72, Karen Parker, 65, Frankie Perry, 68, Larry K. White, 71, Otto White, 65, Joanne A.P. Wilson, 69, and Abdullah Zayed, 71. UNC Black Alumni Reunion Logistics Chair, Stacy Hewitt, class of '89. Shout out to Michael Washington, the class of 2009, with all of his good work that he's been doing with his video recording company for the Black Pioneers organization and the many other programs that he's doing to include and give the help that's needed for UNC alumni to make sure they're getting those internships along the way. Yours truly, the Reverend Rose Highland-Sharpe, has been recording unofficially since 2015 for the Black Pioneers programs, and also since 2009 unofficially for the Black Alumni Reunion Inspirational Service, and officially since 2010 being on the committee for the inspirational services, and then including all of the brunches for the Black Pioneers that followed after those inspirational services since 2010 and whatnot. And all of these programs are being included at UNC-Chapel Hill's Library, Archives, Southern Culture, under Rose Highland-Sharpe, under that, the Black Alumni Reunion, and under that, either the Black Pioneers Dinners, Discussions, and Black Alumni Reunion Inspirational Services. Is keeping our history active and forever and a day. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the program.
First of all, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight, helping us to celebrate this annual Black Pioneer Dinner. And we're so pleased to have you. We don't want to keep you all night, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. First of all, we had, of course, invited the governor to join us. He wasn't able to join us because this being the holiday and Veterans Day, but he did send us a letter and a video. So I want to read the letter to you first. As Governor of North Carolina, I am proud to welcome each of you to the annual Black Pioneer Dinner here at Chapel Hill. I know this is an event that is highly anticipated each year during the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill homecoming. As the first African American student at UNC-CH who graduated in 1972, and during the previous years, you were truly pioneers in every sense of the word. You broke the color barrier and went on to achieve your goals and dreams with careers in every venue, from medicine, business, education, science, and beyond. I hope this time together will give you an opportunity to renew acquaintances, share your experiences, and make new friendships. My best wishes for continued success in all that you do. With warm personal regard, I am very truly yours, Roy Cook. And we have a video presentation that we would like to give you attention to on the screen.
Hi everybody, Governor Roy Cooper here. I wish I could be with you in person this evening, and I wanted to make sure that I welcome you to this great Tar Heel homecoming weekend. Carolina is such a special place, made so much more so through diversity. Over the decades, the Black Pioneers have done so much to make this university better and all student experiences richer. But it couldn't have been easy for you or your Black Pioneer predecessors. Many experiences here, I'm sure, were fantastic for you, and I'm sure many were not. Diversity, though, can bring understanding, healing, and justice, not only to our campus, but to our state and nation. I think our challenge is to continue the progress we've made and try to avoid regression that can be brought on by the courts, the legislature, and the very governing bodies of this university. As a proud graduate of Carolina and the governor of this state, I've appointed by far the most diverse cabinet and staff in the history of our state. They're also the best, and that's no coincidence. We must continue to break down barriers and fight racism and discrimination in our state, in our corporate boardrooms, in our communities, and at the ballot box. We must continue to fight for the changes that we need. And I'm excited to continue our work together to break down the barriers in our healthcare, education, economic, and criminal justice systems that communities of color continue to face. Thank you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do for our great university, our state, and our country. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great homecoming weekend, and go Heels.
You know, you always get in trouble at times like this when you start introducing folks and you leave somebody out. Well, I want you all to know that everybody here is special. Everybody. However, there are a couple of people, well, there are some you will meet later on the panel, but just like to acknowledge the presence of a couple of people. One is Judge Jim Wynn, who is on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, United States Court of Appeals, Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Can you raise your hand, James? And we're fortunate to have the new dean for North Carolina Central University School of Law, who is a 1976 graduate from Carolina, Judge Pat Timmons Goodson. And then I will introduce more of you as the night goes on, no doubt. And I don't want to hold you up too long from eating, so at this time I'm going to ask Brother Otto White if he'll come forward and give us our invocation.
Merciful and gracious God, we invite you to this gathering of UNC Black alums who pioneered in the journey to make this institution the University of the People. More than 3 years before Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat in Birmingham, African Americans began to integrate the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. God's presence in that struggle is evidenced by the life and contribution of those who participated. We are thankful for the courage and pioneering effort in which Black pioneers experienced in surviving the segregated barriers and racist obstacles that existed on this campus and the community. Many of these African Americans received their UNC education during the period of no's. No Black professors, no Black counselors, no Black mentors, no Black athletes, no Black fraternities or sororities. In many cases, no of the Black students in their classes. Most Black pioneers had to resist racial and societal barriers in their being here. Many were academic stars in their communities and came from humble, segregated beginnings to study at this world-renowned institution. God, with your guidance, help us to use this occasion to recommit ourselves to ensure that our pains and sacrifices were not in vain, and that we, individually and corporately, continue the pioneering effort to make the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill the University of all the people. Amen.
All right, well, we're ready for dinner. Who's ready for this?
Let me just interject something here, since it's not on the program. Let us pray for the food. We bless the blessing of the Father for those who prepared the food and those who protect. We ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
We're going to start with table one. So anyone at table one, come on through, and table two, table three, table four, table five. Okay, that's all y'all come at once. So people at table 15, want you to hurry up.
Of course, we all die sooner or later. The Black Pioneers, as you probably know, represent the UNC classes of 1952 through 1972. And as always happens in life, we are fading away. Someday there will be no more Black Pioneers, and that someday probably isn't that far away in relative terms. But tonight, we want to take note of the passing of so many Black pioneers who have gone on to the great Tar Heel space in the sky. We are honored that they have been among us. Last night in this very room at the Light on the Hill dinner, they showed on one of the screens that are around the room the names of the Black alumni who have died within the last year or so. Their names are too many to mention. The youngest one, I believe, was class of 2024. So there are many of us who have passed on. I'm not going to tonight cite individual names other than the name of someone who was not actually a Black pioneer, but was, of course, one of the first great Black athletes in Carolina, the late Walter Davis. So we want to take note of Walter Davis's passing, I think it was the week before last, and thank him for his great contributions to the university. And I want to tip my hat again tonight to all of the great Black athletes who are seated around the room, and thank you all for your service and dedication to the university. Judge Wu.
Thank you so much. Before we need to give Mr. Jackson a nice round of applause because he has almost single-handedly carried this organization. He is our fearless leader. Yes. And while we're talking about the committee, I told you I'd have some more people I wanted to introduce to you. Is Tania here? Miss Tania Pettis? Where's Tania? She's out front. Most of you know Tania. She's responsible for putting this whole weekend together. And so she has been a tremendous help to us. And Stacy Hewitt, who was sitting over here just a while ago, I'll get him in here in a little bit. But oh, there she is in the back. There's Stacy Hewitt. And then one of our members, Ms. Edith Hubbard, has been another of our backbone. She lives in this area, so she gets all of the extra work of having to run around to help select the venue and the menus and all of that kind of stuff. So she's our workhorse, if you will. And I would like to acknowledge all of the members of the Black Pioneers Committee. Those who were present, I think Walter Jackson, Edith Hubbard, Judge Maddox, with Judge, still there somewhere. Otto White, you saw him earlier with the convocation, invocation, I'm sorry. Is Lewis here, Lewis Burton? No, I haven't seen Lewis. And the other members are Karen Garris, Elgin Holloway, Karen Parker, Frankie Perry, Larry White, Joanne A.P. Wilson, and Abdullah Zaid. So let's get a loud applause for all of that. Now, we truly owe a debt of gratitude to Ms. Rose Highland-Sharpe, who is in my left, and Michael Washington, to my right. They are videographers who are videotaping the program. Rose has been doing this for some years for us now, probably 7, 8 years. And if you want to go home and see this program again or tell some of your friends, just go to YouTube, Rose Highland-Sharpe, YouTube, on YouTube. And all of her videos are there. You can also go to the UNC Library and pull up Rose Highland-Sharpe, the Black Alumni Reunion, then Black Pioneers. So all of the previous programs can be found there. Those of you who live in the Southern Pines area, her program, her shows are frequently shown on WYBE TV, Spectrum Channel 3, so you can look for them there. Or if you are Facebook fanatics, you can go on Facebook and look up Rose Highland-Sharpe, and you'll find the videos there. So again, thank you so much, Rose. We do appreciate you. And likewise with you, Mr. Washington, Michael Washington, we appreciate you. All right, at this time, we're going to move along in the program. Our panel discussions. I'm going to ask our panelists if they will come up and join me at the table. We are extremely pleased and happy to have 4 of our outstanding athletes from previous years in Carolina to join us tonight to talk about their experiences and to answer questions that you may have concerning those experiences. To my immediate right is Mr. Reggie McAfee, who is the Executive Director and Founder in 2006 of the Cross Country for Youth, a nonprofit corporation that's dedicated to the health and wellness of elementary and middle school youth. On May 12th of 1973, so y'all count back that far? he became the first African American to break the 4-minute mile in track in 3 minutes, 57.8 seconds. Reggie was born in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm sorry, Cincinnati, Ohio, if you remember right. And raised by a single mother with 7 siblings. He dreamed at an early age of being a great runner, and little did he know his dream would come true and become a part of his reality as he grew older. Reggie received his high school diploma from Corder Tech High School in Cincinnati, where he was state champion in cross country in 1967 and 68. He received an associate degree from Brevard College, where he won 3 national championships and remains the national junior college record holder in the 1 mile of 4 minutes. Reggie received his BA degree from UNC-Chapel Hill, where he was ACC champion, both indoors and outdoors in the mile. In 1971, cross-country champion and current UNC 800-meter record holder in the time of 1.46.9 seconds. 4-time NCAA All-American in the 1 mile. In 1972, 1,500-meter Olympic trial finals. He obtained his master's in business administration and finance from North Carolina Central University, and Reggie worked for 26 years for Xerox Corporation in Charlotte, where he received the coveted President's Club Award. In 1999, and he became the #1 sales specialist for Xerox Corporation. He is a past chairman of the board of directors and of the Deacon Board, Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a charter member of the 100 Black Men of Greater Charlotte. Reggie received the Carolina Trailblazer Award on February 12th of 2022. He was also inducted into the National Black Marathoners Association on August 30th of 2022. So Reggie McAfee is to my immediate right. Sitting next to Reggie is Mr. James, and we call him Jim Webster, who began his college football career as a player at North Carolina in 1968. He started as linebacker for 3 consecutive seasons, and Webster was a standout defensive player for the UNC Tar Heels and was named Most Valuable Defensive Player in 1971 in the Gator Bowl. The following year, he received the ACC's Brian Piccolo Award and the Frank Porter Graham Award as one of the top 12 seniors at UNC. He graduated from UNC in 1972 with a bachelor's degree in education. Webster began his coaching career in 1973, working with the junior varsity program at North Carolina. He also coached linebackers at Dartmouth, defensive ends at Wake Forest, and defensive backs at Northwestern. He served on the coaching staff at Florida, Kansas, and Colorado. Webster's worked with several professional football teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1995 and St. Louis Rams in 1999. Prior to returning to UNC, where he served 4 seasons on the coaching staff, he spent 6 seasons on the coaching staff in East Carolina, where he was promoted to assistant head coach for the Pirates in 1998. In his first season back at Chapel Hill, Webster had an immediate impact on the defense. Under his guidance, defensive end Julius Peppers won both the 2001 Lombardi and Bernard Awards, becoming the first Tar Heel ever to win a major college football award. Peppers became just the 2nd Carolina player to earn consensus All-American honors. Jim Webster served as the 21st head coach at Tennessee State University from 2005 to 2009 and retired from Tennessee State in 2010. Coach Webster and his wife, the former Cornelia Matthews, have 1 son, Collie James, 4 grandchildren, and 2 great-granddaughters. Mr. Webster, I also need to make sure I introduce the wives that are here. McAfee is sitting right here. Raise your hand on that door. And next we have Judge Stanley S. Maddox Jr. Judge, you all know this phrase, here comes the judge. Becoming a judge. Judge was one of the first grant aid scholars, African American scholars at UNC, to sign on with UNC in Chapel Hill. Judge was among the first wave of students during the national push to integrate U.S. colleges and universities in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He earned both ACC and NCAA honors for his achievements on the football team. As a sophomore, he made the All-ACC team as a defensive end. His single game sack yards totals are among the school's all-time records. Judge grew up on a farm in coastal North Carolina near the Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. His family grew tobacco, corn, cotton, soybeans, sweet potatoes, and peanuts while holding full-time jobs working for the more affluent so-called white folks. He was the first in his family to receive a grant to attend college and was inspired by Robert Grant, the first African-American athlete in his county to have a full grant to play sports at a predominantly white university. Judge joined the U.S. Navy in 1979 and served 14 years. While in the Navy, he learned advanced electronics as a sonar technician. He battled addiction to alcohol and other drugs for a while, but as a result of his hard work in the 12-step programs and determination, he has now been sober since 1992. Today, he works for several organizations dedicated to personal growth and development, diversity, and inclusion. He leads weekend seminars for the Mankind Project, the Center for the Healing of Racism, and owns literary property of Shadow Work Incorporated. He has always been on the front line of change and inclusion. He is intimately involved with the efforts for all humans to be accepted and embraced for who they are. Judge has 4 children and 3 grandchildren. He currently lives in Houston, Texas, with his partner of 21 years, and I think he's here tonight. What was his name again? No, okay. So Judge Maddox is here to And finally, we have David C. Belton, with the class of 1975. David was UNC's second African-American male cheerleader. He also has the distinction of being selected an All-American cheerleader by the International Cheerleading Foundation. He later continued his service to UNC as a former member of the Board of Visitors and Regional Morehead Scholarship Selection Committee. While a graduate student at UNC's Office of Student Affairs, David authored the initial programming draft for the Sonia Stone Center. As residence director for the 1982 NCAA Championship men's basketball team, he tutored Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Warren Martin, and Cecil Exum. Furthermore, he was a graduate assistant for the late Dean Bentley Renwick. David currently serves as a congressional fellow through the American Political Science Association. His professional career included stints as a history teacher, administrator at Duke, Winthrop, and Nova Scotia College, and vice president of the Charlotte Chamber, where he was cited by Presidents Bill Clinton and George W. Bush for getting jobs for 4,000 welfare workers. He additionally served as regional director for Governor Beverly Perdue, 2010 Census Regional Partner Services Coordinator, and in various intelligence community roles. In addition to UNC undergraduate and graduate work, David pursued further study at Duke, Harvard, Dartmouth, Cornell, and Johns Hopkins. David's mission is to help the underserved through strategic, innovative approaches. He has celebrated his 36th wedding anniversary with Alfreda Phoenix Belton, a proud Spelman graduate and a retired Microsoft executive. His son, Cameron, better known as C, C11 or C2?
Class.
Class? Class 11. Practices criminal and sports and entertainment law in his firm in Durham. Cameron and his wife Jamia made David and Alfreda doting grandparents with the addition of 2 boys. Alfreda is sitting right here. So at this time, I'm going to give each of our panelists the opportunity to tell you a little bit about themselves that I haven't told you, and to introduce themselves to you. So we start with you, Richard.
First of all, giving honor to God, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here this afternoon and also to be here with these panelists who I admire, that I've known for years but didn't really have a personal connection with a couple of them. But this is a unique opportunity for us to just kind of share our experiences. And our experiences are unique. You know, I remember when I first came to Carolina years ago, when I first came to Carolina, you know, I was always a nationally ranked track and field runner. And what was interesting is that, as he mentioned, I had 3 national titles before I came here. 1 in cross country and 2 in the mile and a half mile at Brevard College. So I felt real comfortable on the world stage because I knew that I could compete against the best. But one thing that was real unique is that it was really important for me to leave send a message about distance running for middle distance running for African American youth. Because my coach, Bobby Howell, in high school, planted a seed inside of me that said, I could be the first African American to run a mile in 4 minutes. And I just thought people were doing it automatically, but he said, no one has ever done it before. So when he planted that seed inside of me, it became a spark that lit into a flame. And I wanted to send a message that African Americans can do anything, because there were so many stereotypes that we couldn't run the middle distances. And I think that when you start labeling people and telling them what they can't do, it becomes really challenging. And so I wanted to make sure that not only did I do it once, but I did it 5 different times. So when you do that, I was like a pioneer then, because many young people weren't able to see us in that light. And I wanted to make sure that kids, young people behind me knew that they can do great things. And that's where I started my organization. My wife and I talked about it when I was working at Xerox. I said, you know, I really want to be able to give something back and kind of pay it forward. And when I left Xerox, they couldn't believe I was going to start an organization and work with youth. They said, really, what you going to do, Reggie? I said, I'm going to start this organization that makes a difference in the lives of kids. And it's not just running. So we have a character curriculum that focuses on character education like respect and integrity and sportsmanship and honesty and those kinds of things. And then we talk about, we have a nutrition curriculum as well. And then we do social emotional kinds of things as well. Because kids may not be great runners, but they can all be great people. So that's our message. And so I am so thankful that I was given the gift by God to run like I did. When I say I have passion, guys, it's really kind of on a different level. Because I knew I was on a mission, and there was nothing and nobody that's going to stop me from reaching my goals. And I think it's really important that when you're going after something, that you do it with everything you got. Don't halfway do it. And that's kind of who I was, and that's what I was trying to do. But I'm thankful that I was able to accomplish that, but it wasn't just Reggie McAfee doing that. I had people in my life who gave unselfishly of their time, talent, and resources to help me get to that level. All the coaches, especially people in Cincinnati, who were just incredible people who cared. And just like when I got here, somebody mentioned Benny Rarick, these are people that cared. They cared about me as a person. And that's why I do what I do now, because they did what they did then. So when you see me and you see all those accolades, guys, there's a bunch of people behind me that stood in the gap. They may be nameless, they may not be around, but boy, they were there. And they meant a lot to me. And it made me feel like, okay, do what you gotta do, because as my pastor always says, to whom much is given, much is required. I've been given much, and so much is required. So when I run this nonprofit, trust me, I'm working my butt off because I do. But I have so many people in our organization that work like that because they want to make a difference in our community, and they're doing it. And I'm thankful to them. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank the organization for inviting us here to recognize us. And believe me, it's a lot that we can talk about, about the things that happen when we're here in Carolina. I appreciate you inviting us here to discuss those things. I want to recognize my wife again, Cornelia, 50 years. I wish I had been invited to talk about those 50 years. I'll move on from that. I tell you what, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to sit and talk about Carolina in those early years. And as we all know, we can't talk about everything, but there's certain things that we can pull out of our experience. And I think it means something when you are the first, or one of the first. Judge Maddox and I, Rick Lanier was the first black athlete on scholarship, and Judge Maddox and I were the second and third black football players here in Carolina on scholarship. And then later I come to find out that there were some black players on the Carolina football team before us. I don't know if any of those guys are here now, but there were 3 or 4 guys. There we go, okay, recognize it. And I used to read where sometimes they said they wouldn't tell you when practice was, or you wouldn't be able to be there on time or something like that, but I do want to recognize it, because I didn't know that there were players. I thought we were the first, but we were the first scholarship players to attend the University of North Carolina. And it was an interesting career, goes without saying. But I want to thank Judge, because Judge and I were roommates, and we sort of helped each other. That meant a lot. It really did mean a lot. I think when Ricky was there, he had a room by himself, which was nice, because he didn't have a roommate, We all know why he had a room by himself, because he was the only one. And so that was nice from that standpoint, but I want to thank Judge, because that meant a lot to me. We being together, it's always good when you go through trials and tribulations to have somebody to lean on and talk about it, and, fuss a little bit about this, that, and the other things of that nature. So that made my career in Carolina a little bit easier to go. I do want to share this with you, is that go back a little bit before I got to Carolina, because I'm from Winston-Salem, and when everyone realized that Carolina was interested in me coming to school there, the thing I heard the whole time was, you don't want to go to school there. You don't want to go to school there because you're going to go there and, all they're going to do is use you as a football player, and you're never going to graduate from Carolina. You won't. And it was the understanding all over the country that black athletes were simply used to come in and play for their talent, but they weren't getting their degrees. They were just there to play. It was a thought of, you guys are made of rubber. You go in there and you get bounced around, whatever. And so, sometimes people can say things to you, sort of stick your craw a little bit. Nobody talked about how good of a player I was, or my intelligence was just that, don't go to Carolina, you won't make it. You'll go there, they'll use you up, and you'll play, and then, you won't come away with your degree. So, once I decided to go to Carolina, and it was understood that I was going to sign my letter and all that stuff, I made it up in my mind, I am going to graduate in 4 years. That's it. 4 years. I'm going to get it done in 4 years. And I told a couple of my buddies that, whether it was jealousy or whatever it was, no way, man, you're not going to make it in 4 years, but I'm going to make it in 4 years. And as my career went on, I got injured a couple of times, well, quite a few times. And I remember the one year when I got injured, and Coach Dooley called me and he says, look, he says, we want to, after that year, we want to redshirt you next year. We want to redshirt you, because during that time, you only had 4 years to play, 4 years. And I looked at Dooley and I said, Coach, I said, no, I'm not going to redshirt. I said, because my senior year, I'm out of here. I'm gonna graduate in 4 years and I'm gone. But, you know, you really need another year to get your body back, and we'd love to have you here. You've been a great player your 5th year. I said, no, you don't understand. 4 years, senior year, I'm out of here. And so I had to go to summer school to make up for some grades that I had missed when I was injured. I had to drop out of some classes. And in 4 years, I walked. I did. And I was, that was not committed. To achieve that goal. It wasn't the other goals, the awards, the victories, and the championships, and all like that. But it was just the fact that I had made that up, and I was able to do that. One thing about, and I've got to say this, when we first in Carolina, there weren't a lot of black students here. Matter of fact, I used to tell my buddies, we used to have parties in our dorm room, and practically every black student on campus was at that party. and I'm sure, Angie, am I right? And that's right, Angie Bryan, she was one of them, you know. And I'm serious when I say that, you know. We'd have a party, and sometimes we would get, if it got to be everybody would show up. Of course, most of the dorms had 4 rooms, suite. We maybe get the suite, you know, we might filter over them. But that was it. I mean, we were tight, and we were there. And it was a closeness. You know, there was a certain closeness when we were here as students and athletes, because there weren't many of us. And, you know, during that time when you walked on campus, so black, hey, what's up, bro? You know, how you doing? You know, and as I coached on different college campuses, now, you know, black students walk past each other just like, you know, anybody else. Nobody acknowledges anybody, and it's foreign to me. That's foreign. I mean, that's just the way it is. I guess there's so more than that now. But we were tight. We were. We acknowledged each other. I could name everybody that was on campus. We all knew each other, and that was sort of a support for each other. I can remember that we started, or were the first ones for the black student movement here on campus. We got that going. And, you know, that's something that I'm proud of that we were doing, because during that time there was a lot of social issues going on in America. A lot of social issues, and that was, you know, some students say, hey, you know, we need to boycott, we need to leave school, this, that, and the other, but there were a lot of things that we discussed during that time. But getting back to being a black athlete at the University of North Carolina, it was a unique experience. And some people would ask me sometimes, well, what was it like being black, the racism? You know, did you have to deal with racism? Did you have to deal because you weren't that many, you know, black players on the field? Well, I've got to think about how to say this, not to be abusive or to be naughty or nasty. But Bill Dooley treated us all just like, okay? He did. And I'm very serious when I say that. It didn't matter whether you were black or white. You put that helmet on, you put that blue on, we all got treated like it. I'm serious. And when I say that, I mean that. I will say this for him, he took over a team that was 0-10, 1-9. Our senior year, we won the first ACC championship, 1971-72 season. First ACC championship for the University of North Carolina. We went to the Gator Bowl and played Georgia. So during that transition of time, we were able to make that accomplishment only because we worked harder than anybody else in the country. It wasn't about whether you were black, it wasn't about whether you looked white, it wasn't about that kind of stuff like that. It was just about you got this helmet on, you got there on the field, and you performed. I do have to share this with you. I remember my freshman year, and of course, you know, all coaches were white, right? Sure. One of the coaches, it was something, a drill going on, and he didn't like something I did, so he grabbed me. And I stopped looking at him, I said, Coach, I'm not gonna call his name. I said, don't ever put your hands on me. Never again. I said, never put your hands on me again. And he never did. And it goes back to my thinking is that people would treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. Had I not said that to him, I'm sure that there would have been other instances of him grabbing me, putting his hands on me. But like I told him, that's just something I wasn't used to. You know, my parents never grabbed me, my coaches never grabbed me, so, you know, don't do that. And he never did it again, too. You know, he knew I was very serious about it. And I was, too. But they had that scholarship. You know, we got to go. One other thing I can share with you is that when I became head coach at Tennessee State University, I tried to equate the experience of my players at a black university versus, in my experience, at UNC. You know, sometimes, I mean, I know you say, how can you possibly do that? Well, you really can't, but I just watched their reaction, their social life and things like that, and how I handled them and communicated with them, trying to go back and look at our social experience and coach things like of that nature. And the only thing I could come up with that might even be remotely similar, or whatever case, with football players. That's the only thing I could come up with, because it was just totally different thing as far as the social atmosphere, the camaraderie, particularly because I had mostly a black staff, our communication with the players. There was communication. We talked with them about things other than football. We talked with them about, how's your mom doing? How's your dad doing? How's your sister doing? How you doing in school? Those type of things. There was a little bit of a bond there, a lot of bond there between us, whereas when we were players here, it was all football. That's it. The only question I was asked is, how's your ankle doing? Is your back, you all right? You practicing today? You know, that was it. As far as communication, you know, and there wasn't anything socially. There wasn't anything about a bond of how you. Now, there may have been some other coaches, you know, maybe Reggie got that, but we didn't get that. It was strictly all football. That's it, you know, and that's just the way it was. So that was something that I could see was a difference in coming to a Carolina as opposed to, I'm sure my buddies that went to historical black schools or going to those schools, it might have been a little different from that standpoint. But I'm proud that I did make the decision to come to the University of North Carolina. I'm proud to be one of the early graduates of the University of North Carolina. And I pay homage to those that came before me that don't get the recognition they deserve. They really should get a lot of recognition, but they don't get it. And that's why I want to recognize them tonight, and I'm proud to have come after that and to have done what we did and to accomplish what we have accomplished. And I'm also proud to be in a room among fellow Tar Heels, because y'all, it's a great accomplishment, believe me. And I don't take my degree from UNC for granted. I don't. I know what I had to do in order to earn my degree. I know these students coming through now, it's a whole lot easier, I think, than what it was for us when we came through. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you that all these online classes, you didn't have to go to class. You know, and all these other type things like that. I'm talking about you walk in the classroom, James West, and you hear they check you off. You hear. And if you miss 3 classes, you fail a course. You know, all that kind of stuff. So I'm proud to be here, and I do thank the organization for inviting us here. And I appreciate Judge for being here. He kept it going. We kept each other going. And my wife, I love you.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say at the Jim Webster and Reggie McAfee? Well, they have really raised the bar. So Jim and I have had some conversations recently. We were talking about what we could do to put our experiences on paper so that others might learn from some of the things that we have experienced. And one of the things that he said to me in some of our conversations, that he was not going to be the only black football player in the class of '72. And I didn't know that until just a couple of years ago. And so when I was being recruited, I was being recruited by someone who wanted me to come play football. And many of you may not know, my love was basketball. In high school, I averaged 18 points and 18 rebounds per game in my senior year. And everybody in my family believed that I would go somewhere to play basketball. And I came to the University of North Carolina because there was this guy named Charlie Scott. And watching him play, he embodied everything I wanted to be as a basketball player. He could jump, he could dribble, he could defend, and I believed that I could walk in his footsteps. But I didn't have an offer from the University of North Carolina to play basketball because I played at a very, very small school. Right? It was, in the days that I graduated, it was a 2A. But I had come from a much larger school that most people didn't know about. I came from I came from a black school, right? In Onslow County, North Carolina. And that black school was called Georgetown. And in 1966, when North Carolina mandated the end of segregation in schools, I was sent to a much smaller school. The school that I went to was smaller than my freshman class. And I started playing basketball in my freshman year, and I never played JV. I was always on the varsity team. And as a freshman, that meant I sat the bench a lot, right, rather than being on the floor. But it was about my ability to jump that everyone was impressed with. So when the coaches at North Carolina came visiting, wanting me to see if I would be willing to accept a scholarship to play football, my mind says, and I get to play with Charlie Scott. And it was true, I truly wanted to. And during my interview, I spoke with Dean Smith, and he was agreeable that he would allow me to come in and try out on the basketball team. And my commitment to Dean, to Dooley, was that I'd give him 2 years to decide whether or not I'd stay on the football team. And in my freshman year was when the first disappointment in that negotiation fell through for me. And what he said to me was, if you go out for the basketball team, you're going to miss 2 days of spring practice. And if you miss those 2 days, I'm going to redshirt you. So I was stuck in that dilemma with very little mentorship around what decision to make, right? Because, as Jim said, we didn't have any black mentors here at Carolina who could really give us the advice as student athletes as to how to make decisions. There was no one in my family at home who had ever been at a college, right, or played sports at a university. So I was basically stuck in a dilemma. My parents didn't even have a telephone during this time, so I couldn't reach out to them to talk to them about this decision that was going to impact the rest of my life. And the decision I made was based on a misunderstanding of what power I had as a student athlete with a grant in aid. At that time, I really did think it was a scholarship and that the football team had control of it. But the truth was, I had all the control, just didn't know it. And that was because of the lack of mentorship, right? So in making that first decision not to follow my dream, right, to play both sports until I could make a decision in my junior year, which sport would be the best for me. So I didn't play basketball here. I didn't go to the freshman team. And I knew that I was as good as every basketball player that was on that court. I had a 41-inch vertical jump, and I've got 6'11" arms, right? So I knew that I could do it, could go there and play, and I chose not to. That decision left me with a sense of not being heard or being more misunderstood. And when an opportunity came for me to have a real discussion with my coach, Bill Dooley at that time, I made a decision which impacted the rest of my life, and I decided to walk away from football, and still didn't have an opportunity to play basketball. So I was stuck. Right? I was stuck in that dilemma. I don't say all. Actually, if you think about it, that was the best decision of my life. Because so many athletes today are they have been diagnosed with this TBI, traumatic brain injury. And I was the kind of player that I believe I could have been in that number very, very, very easily, right? So unbeknownst to me, it was a great decision for my body, right? And my heart was broken. Right? Here I am at the University of North Carolina, and I had to walk away from Jim. He told you that we were roommates. I couldn't stay in his room anymore, right? So I was stuck in a position of being, what do I do now? And today I know that I was depressed. Then I just didn't know, right? I was in a position of, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't, and I don't know who to talk to. So I didn't graduate. I made a decision not to follow that dream. I didn't graduate, but I stayed around Carolina for a very long time. I took a lot of classes, I got a lot of credits, but no degree. And that led me to the Navy. You guys saw that in my biography. And in the Navy is where I rose. I got to shine. I got to be who I could be, right? I played basketball in the Navy. I won championships in basketball in the Navy. I was the most valuable player on their basketball teams. And I had a wonderful time. I also got the education that I wanted as an electronics technician, with an advanced electronics degree. And that led me to all of the jobs that I had after leaving the Navy. The Navy was that kind of experience where, I had to truly grow up and become a man. I couldn't be that little boy anymore. I had to make decisions. I had to be on time. I had to be accountable. I had to have a sense of integrity. And all of that led to me, when I got out of the Navy and realized that I really had a problem with drugs and alcohol, that I could make the decision that it was time for my life to change. It was time for me to become the man that I'm supposed to be. Going back to being here at the University of North Carolina, what I can say today, and I say to my friends all around the world, I'm a Tar Heel born, right? And you guys know the rest, right? And when I die, I will be, And I have followed this school, and I've followed their sports in everything. Jim talked about the camaraderie we had as those first, I think it was maybe 300 of us when we got here. Certainly it was by the time I left. The camaraderie we had in the sea of pink. And I'm not going to say white because I don't believe in black and white, right? Black doesn't describe who I am, and white certainly doesn't describe who the European Americans are, right? So I've let that go. What I want to say is that my experience here taught me that you're going to face adversity no matter where you are and what you do. It's what you do about that adversity that makes the difference. All right? Today, I work with men and women to help them look at the decisions they made in their past and how those decisions in their past impacts their present. And when they're ready to love themselves, forgive themselves, and make decisions that are different than they would have made at 17 or 18 or 10 or 12, that those are the decisions that are going to matter now. What are you going to do today? How are you going to wake up every morning? Right? And it's been this experience of not having those mentors in my past that I do my very best to be the mentors to the people in my life today, and not just children, right? But the mentors of those people who were like me, who were stuck in a dilemma of drugs and alcohol. And I don't have to worry about that anymore today. Today, my life is filled with nothing but people who love me, people who see me for who I am, and I can be authentic and integrity with myself and accountable to them. And I think when I was invited to be on this panel, part of me wanted to say no because I didn't have that degree. But what I realized is that being one of the first to receive those granted that we were setting a legacy. And so many of you have told me today the inspiration that I was giving you to come and be in this university with us. And so many of you can still, you know, I was joking when I put "Here Come the Judge," but I truly did hear that. It was a popular song as we were growing up, and on the football field, it was my pleasure to be out there representing the men and women like me who were not given a chance, or who were told that they weren't good enough, or who were told that they couldn't succeed. And I look among your faces today, and I know that that's a lie. Right? We've got Angela Bryant, right? We've got Jim Webster and Reggie McAfee, right? And let's not forget Donnie Hoover, Judge Hoover, and all of the other ones of us who have proven that we are human beings. And I thank you.
Wow. I'm honored to even be here, and I want to thank all the Black pioneers. You all set the stage for all of us who followed you, and I really want to thank you. Now, I'm not as gifted as the other panelists here. They said they were on scholarship, but I've had several anesthesias, so I want to do something a little bit different. I had to write mine down. My name is David Belton, and I'm in the class of 1975. And for many years, I thought I was the first black male cheerleader at UNC. However, while attending the bar in the mid-2000s, I instead discovered that James Womack, class of 67, was the first, a true UNC black pioneer. In 2019, I initiated a bar panel which featured James Womack, revealing his painful story. Thankfully, we videotaped his comments because in 2021, just 2 years later, James transitioned. My presentation tonight is dedicated to the late James Womack and to Mary Rudd Robinson, my 1975 classmate, who was the first black female cheerleader. On a dare from his roommate, Walter Jackson, James decided to try out for cheerleading. However, when he arrived in Kenan Stadium, all of the other hopefuls stood up and moved to the other side of the stadium. He soon discovered that the judges and the squad were primarily a club, mostly white sorority and fraternity brothers, members. And after his routine was completed, he learned that when the judges realized that he had made the team with a perfect score, they attempted to reassess his scores. However, the student body president at the time refused to let them change their scores. James was pleasantly surprised when they announced that he had made the team. During his first game, UNC fans, in protest, threw oranges at him and called him the N-word. To add insult to injury, his squad members refused to talk to him for an entire year. And there were 2 members that never spoke to him the entire time he was on the squad. When the squad traveled to Clemson, he was not allowed to stay at the hotel with his other teammates. While he experienced microaggressions and blatant indignities, he kept quiet, not even telling his family, until the day he spoke at the 2019 bar. Wow. They met him for the first time. Because he recognized his value, Coach Dean Smith tapped James to accompany him on a trip to recruit Charlie Scott, UNC's first black basketball athlete. James quietly invited Charlie to the campus to get a feel for the campus out of the glare of the media. Eventually, James was asked to travel to recruit football players as well. James said that he felt the love of Carolina athletics, but at the same time, the sting of racism. In 1971, when Mary Rudd and I made the squad, we were erroneously told that both of us were the first black cheerleaders at Carolina. As I said earlier, thanks to the bar, some 30 years later, we learned that Mary had the honor of being the first black female cheerleader. Our stories are pale in comparison to James. During our first practice, team members were assigned partners by height. Mary was paired with John Tucker, and I was paired with Becky Branch. At the very next practice, the coach informed us that there was a change, and that change had been approved from the very top. And at that point, I knew what that change was. I was assigned to Mary. If you don't know Mary, Mary is short and I'm fairly tall. After telling Dean Renwick how violated we felt with this decision, he had the partner assignment reversed by the chancellor the very next practice. Mary, who cheered for 2 years, went on to become a prominent judge in Florida. After Mary's departure, Lois Peaches Hauser Golding, class of '76, joined the team as our second black female cheerleader. Peaches currently serves as King Charles's Lloyd Lieutenant of the City of Bristol in the UK. The third black female cheerleader is Pamela Parham Alsbury, class of '77. I haven't seen her, but she said she was coming tonight. Her distinction was that she was a member of the first UNC Championship cheerleading team. As for me, I made the squad for 4 consecutive years. Many may remember a routine with the band where I was featured during doing the robot at halftime of the Duke Carolina football game on national TV, just days after the dance was introduced on the popular show Soul Train. I was also honored my senior year as captain of the squad and as an All-American cheerleader by the International Cheerleading Foundation. For someone who intended to go to the freshman cheerleading tryouts just to get a peek at the pretty freshman women, I had a very good ride cheerleading. That said, after hearing the challenging treatment that James experienced, I'm indebted to him for paving the way for the 60-plus black cheerleaders who have served this university. I am proud to have followed him as UNC's second black male cheerleader. James deserves more recognition, and I hope the university finds a way to permanently honor him. Allow me to recognize again my lovely wife, Alfreda, and my son, Cameron, is also here. He's an attorney in Durham. And I want to thank them for their support. And thanks to Donnie Hoover and the Black Pioneers Dinner Committee for the opportunity to provide background to a little-known but significant part of UNC history. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. Now, I'm not going to let Jim and David get me in trouble. I'd like to introduce you to my wife of 53 years, Jennifer Hoover. I might just turn it on. Test it, test it. Test it. All right. And of course, beside her is one of our little cousins, Ted T.J. White Jr., who's a rising senior here in Carolina now, and we're proud to have him come meet the Black Pioneers. His sister was a cheerleader here a couple of years ago, until a couple of years ago. There's a good connection there. All right, moving right along. My daughter tells me my stories are too long, so I'm going to try to shorten this one a little bit. But I don't know if you guys knew this, but I graduated from West Charlotte High School in 1967. I was an all-state tackle and played in the Shrine Bowl in Winston-Salem. Then we had the Black Shrine Bowl in Winston-Salem. White Shrine Bowl was in Charlotte. But I had determined back in 1962, when we brought my brother down here for his freshman year, that this is where I wanted to go to school. I don't care what else came along. This was it. Well, I had scholarship offers to several HBCUs, some schools in Ohio or somewhere called Muskegon, and another one I'd never heard of. But in any event, this white lawyer in Charlotte heard that I read in the papers when they were interviewing, I wanted to go to Carolina. So he came over to West Charlotte one day and asked my principal if he could take me down to a cemetery club meeting to meet this guy, Bill Dooley. This was his first year coming to Carolina. Well, I didn't get to meet him, but I got to sit in the back of the room with the cemetery club and listen to him. One of the reporters asked him, well, what do you think about recruiting black players? And without hesitation, he told me, well, if I can get one a year, I'll be doing good. Well, a couple of weeks later, they got the same lawyer asked the principal if he could bring me down to Chapel Hill to meet Bill Dooley. Well, we did. And I'm thinking, well, I can be that one. Well, when I got there, he informed us that he had given out all the grant aids for that year, but I could come out as a free agent. He wanted to come when the team started, which I did. That year, about half of the varsity team had quit because they didn't want to play with Bill Dooley. So they had to use us freshmen linemen as dummies for the varsity. Well, at that time, I weighed 235. These guys on that line weighed about 185. And he couldn't understand why they couldn't stop me. Well, you know, but it was never anything I was doing right. It was always telling them what they were doing wrong. Well, the third day I was here, we had a scrimmage in Keenan Stadium. Well, believe it or not, they wouldn't let me play. Next day, we in practice, and I hit this iron sled dummy and broke it. Well, I knew I was going to get over there, you know, even though it was a freak accident. But, you know. He came up to me and said, "Who? Is that all you got to do, tear up the equipment?" Well, that all the air went out of my balloon at that point. So the next day I went and I told him, I said, look, it's very clear to me that you all don't want me on this team. Rick Lanier was already there and he was their scholarship recipient for that year. And by the way, Rick and I were roommates for a week. But I told him I was going home. If I could leave my things at school started, I'd come get them. I wasn't there on a football scholarship. And that's what happened. And so believe me, I was shocked and amazed. The next year when you two showed up with grant aids, I'm like, how did this happen? You know? So I guess my question, and following, of course, you as well as Rick, and those of you who knew Rick, I don't think this is any secret, know that Rick was much better quarterback than Swafford. No questions about it. And the one game they let him play in because Swafford was hurt, he proved it. Nonetheless, the next year he was a wide receiver or something. Now I had played against Rick in the Shrine Bowl our senior year. I chased him the whole game and never caught him. But so I knew how good he was. But that was our experience from the class, entering class of '67. I guess my question from all of that is, did you all find Dooley? One of you said that he treated everybody like dogs, but
no, I didn't say dog. That's it. That would be a compliment to say he treated us like dogs.
got a little better treatment than Rick. What was up with that?
Better treatment?
That was our observation from the outside.
No.
I mean, was it because he was a quarterback and they didn't want a black quarterback? Or what?
Yeah, I don't think that, when you say treatment, I'm talking about the way they reacted to us. You know, I mean, just, there was another black quarterback that came in, Charles Baggett. Yeah. Fayetteville. Now, he was a real deal. He was a real deal too. And I think it was his sophomore year, they talked about moving him to wide receiver. I went to Baggett, I said, no. I said, you're a quarterback. I said, get the hell out of here. He went to Michigan State, he was all conference. Michigan State. But I think that, you know, from that standpoint of view, you know, Ricky, quarterback is the quarterback. That's the focal point of any football team. You got a good quarterback, you got a chance to win. You don't have a good quarterback, you have a great running back and great offensive line, all like that. And I think during that time in the South, I don't know if there were any black quarterbacks. I think Wake Forest may have had one. So I think the difference of Rick and us was that we were not in focal positions. You know, we weren't that guy under center. So Ricky had more, I don't know what to say, he had more of attention going to him than we did. We were on the radar. We just out there knocking the hell out of him. You know, whereas he was the quarterback. So I think there was a move to get him out of that focal position. You know, to get him out of that focal position. I think Ricky even told me at the time, he said, well, they even offered to try and get him a scholarship to school somewhere else. He mentioned that, and I think when they told him he was going to move to wide receiver, he said, no, I'm going to do my parents I graduate. But I think that was the difference, in that we weren't the horse that pulled the cart, you know, whereas he was, and I don't think that the South was ready for that. Judge, you got anything to add to that?
Jim's mic is not working well.
Okay. All right. I just need to hold him out. Okay. All right.
Well, so the experience I had here at Carolina was really worth my while. And as I said earlier, Jim made the decision that he wasn't going to be the only black, right? That was a decision that impacted what you were talking about, Donnie, right? When he made the decision and they wanted him, right? They had to find someone like me, right? Who they believed, because I came from a small school, I was just going to be a number. Somebody that they could blend into the background somewhere, right? Which proved what most of you don't know, and that is that, Reggie, you started by, giving honor to God, right? In my sophomore year, before the first game, God did his thing. The man who was supposed to start in front of me hurt his knee. He never got to start again. And he was a senior. Right. And the reason he didn't get to start again, his knee got better, but I was already in place. I was already doing what I had come here to do, was to prove that black athletes could play in this league. And that was not me. I want you guys to hear it again. That was all God. Right? And when God moves, you know what happens. Right? And I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I know that was not me. Right? Because they already had me, in the second team. Right? In my sophomore year. But when given the opportunity, God did what God does. Right? I just want you guys to hear that. Right? And as far as Bill Dooley, think about the age, the time. I mean, we were in the heart of we were at the heart of the civil rights movement. Yes. Right? And he was a part of America who was not ready, right, to receive us, to accept us, to see us. And he was just being who he was, right? And we came here, as Jim said, I came here to get my degree. I came here to prove that we were good enough. And everything I did proved that. And Bill Dooley didn't give me honors, right? I never went on his show, even though I was in my sophomore year. I was the defensive player of the week 4 times. Right? So again, he was just being Bill Dooley. Right? He was just following a belief that he had about who we were and who he was. Right? And you can't do anything but that was our culture. Right? And what we had to do was to overcome. And I believe if you hear on this panel, you see people who have overcome. Even Donnie, right? He didn't let that stop him from getting his degrees and his education and becoming the judge that he is today, right? And all we were doing was just being where God wanted us to be, doing what we needed to do to show the world that we are human, right? And that there's no difference in the size of our brains or our intellect, but it takes hard work and perseverance to succeed at anything.
Thank you. Reggie, I want to direct this to you. In case some of you don't understand this like I didn't, track and cross country are 2 different sports, 2 different teams. Reggie did both. And so my question to you is, you know, we think of track and cross country as being, you know, you just out there running through the woods somewhere by yourself. But my question is, what was your experience like dealing with your coaches, people that you had to work with, your fellow track members? What kind of relationships did you have with them?
Well, actually, I had a great relationship with our cross-country team. When I was national champion at Brevard College, I kind of, in cross-country, I kind of knew what it took to be a great cross-country runner. So when I transitioned here to Carolina, we won our first ACC championship the year I came, and we beat Duke, and it was a fierce competition. But I think that what happens in cross-country, if you never ran before, you usually run either 5K or most of the time in college it's 10,000 meters, it's 6.2 miles. And it's over rolling hills on courses, usually golf courses or trails and things like that. And you're running against hundreds of different runners, but it's an endurance sport. And it really comes down to the toughest. And you have to kind of spread that mentality to your team. And so when we ran cross country, it's a beautiful sport because it sets you up for track and field. So it just gives you the conditioning, and it gives you the stamina to run smaller races very, very quickly. So if you can run 5K or 10,000 meters or a half marathon, you can easily run a mile or a half mile. So it kind of gives you that stamina that you need and endurance you need to be successful. But a lot of people steer away from cross country because they think it makes you tired. So when people started talking about running a mile, when I was younger, they said, "Boy, that's so long." But in our organization right now, we got kids that are running 2 miles in competition, and they're 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, right? So it's all what you exposed to. If you expose people to things that are not how would I say this? If you expose people to things that's going to make them better, sometimes they'll see it as it may be a challenge, or it may be something that causes them not to be successful. But I think we should expose kids to everything, so they can make choices and make decisions that will better serve them. So cross country is just an awesome sport, but it's the kind of thing that most people shy away from because they're not comfortable with it. And I remember going to several different schools when I tell them about cross country, and even today, people will say, "We don't do that," or we don't do this and we don't do that. And so I think sometimes we just got to say, "Give it a try. Give it a try." If that helps.
David, you already talked about how they wanted to switch you up when they initially paired you up with female of other persuasion. But what was the social life like off the court, off the field? Was there any interaction between the two of you and the other cheerleaders doing off season, off the courts?
Not really. Not really. I've stayed in contact with several of them since. And I think some of them probably felt more comfortable after they got out of Carolina and they were not a part of their fraternity or sorority. Like you, I went to West Charlotte, and they teach you to feel like you're just as good as anybody else. And so when I came here, I felt that, and I did not want to think or have them think that I was less than. I was blessed to have an uncle who lived next door who is credited with having started Brown versus Board of Ed. There are 5 cases to Brown, and Reverend Lane was my uncle, who was the one that got all the plaintiffs together for the South Carolina case. And so I'll let you do your little reading on that, but I knew in coming to Carolina that I was going to be an extension of what he and those plaintiffs had started. So when I came here, I remember my freshman year, they had this thing called Brush. And in the evening, all these white people were going places. I'm going, where are they going? Nobody invited me anywhere. And so a couple of the cheerleaders were members of this one fraternity. And I learned that the one beside them was the real rich fraternity on the corner. I'm not going to say where we are, which one it is. But point is, I decided I was going to go. And I wanted to see whether or not they were going to, or how they were going to treat me. Because if everybody else could come and see, look, you want to be a member, I wanted to see how they would welcome me. Well, I was my friendly self. I was myself. I was authentic. I didn't particularly know much about these fraternities. I wanted to be an Omega, which was what my father and uncle and everybody else was, and I eventually became an Omega. Roo-roo. I went to this rush, and I went the second night, and they told me that you're just as nice as everybody here, but I cannot see myself being your brother. I just can't get myself to that. And I realized that they were not ready for me. So, now mind you, I had to cheer with them afterwards. They had their world. We had the BSM, we had the parties. And by the way, Jim, I went to a couple of your parties. Probably don't remember. But anyway, there wasn't a lot of socializing afterwards. But now, with social media, we stay in contact, Christmas cards and whatnot. We stay connected that way.
I want to get you all out of here before midnight, like I said. Are there any questions from the audience? I'm some of you may have some burning questions you'd like to ask. I have a question. Okay, just let me get to you.
Mine is a point of privilege. I want you to give this to Willie.
Oh, okay.
These are called brownie points. Easy. I have a question for Rich.
Okay, 1 second.
Oh, somebody here. Ladies, you deserve it.
before I move to the next question over here, I'd like to introduce those of you who don't know him to Mr. Willie Cooper, who's sitting here. And in actuality, Willie Cooper was the first black basketball player in Carolina in '64. The freshman basketball team in Carolina in 1964-65.
Wow.
And we'll have maybe give him make some comments after our question. There was a question over here. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Reggie, when did he run his sub 4-minute mile in relation to Jim Ryan running that?
And his question was, when did I run my sub 4-minute mile in relation to Jim Ryan? He was much older. Jim Ryan ran under 4 minutes, I think around 66, 67.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I ran mine in 1973.
Was that, what about the Olympics? Is there any chances of you running in the Olympics, or was that just was never an idea for you?
Yeah, it was an idea. I got injured right before the Olympic trials in 1972. So I made it to the trials, but I was really not 100%. And I had ran some fantastic times before that, and had qualified for the qualifying time the year before. But I was so I was still on that journey of running under 4 minutes a mile. So it wasn't until the following year that I ran under 4 minutes with my 3:57 time. Go ahead.
I have a follow-up question with that. So the sub 4 minutes, I know that's very physically demanding, but you mentioned your coach planted that seed in your mind, and it was a spark that turned to a flame. But what, like, mentally did you lean on? Like, how did you train your mind to, accomplish something so crazy?
This question was, how did I train myself to mentally prepare for something like that? I think it's a matter of your outlook on things. I just believed that I could, and I think it's about attitude. I always saw myself as being unstoppable, and that's how I kind of see things. And I always visualized and saw myself doing something before I actually did it. So I could always see myself doing it. And I would also say that the encouragement that I received when I was in high school, it planted that seed for me as well. And folks in my neighborhood, they grew up and said, Reggie, you better do this, you better do that. So it was like consequences as well. But I think that I just thought that I could do it, and I just focused and made sure I prepared. And I used to have a philosophy that said that nobody would outwork me, right? That's kind of how I think. I just said nobody would outwork me. So even when I came to Carolina, we ran cross country. I can remember we had lost to Duke every time in the cross country championship. And I looked at everybody in the room and I said, guys, we are not going to lose this competition. And so once I planted that seed in their head as well, we won the championship. And I never will forget, and this will make you feel interesting about Duke. Duke was like at this table, and we were crowded here. And I got everybody to circle up after they called out the scores. And I had to ask them to shout out, who did we beat? And they said, Duke. They said, who did we beat? They repeated Duke, Duke, Duke. And what that did was, it raised the temperature in the ACC for all the runners because they knew that we were coming. But I think that, back to your question, I think it's your mental approach. And you just got to be mentally tough and see yourself as doing the things that you want to do and doing the work that gets you there.
Angela, where are you?
It's a follow-up for Reggie. But you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell us about the other blacks who were on the track and field at the time? Seems like and I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but it seems like there maybe have been some others, or what was that? Were you the only one?
No, you're talking about at Carolina? At Carolina?
Yeah. How did it, what would you describe as sort of the progression and inclusion for blacks during that time? What was it like?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you asked that question because when I transferred from Brevard College, my roommate was Lennox Stewart from Trinidad. And he was an incredible person, but he was also an incredible runner. He made the Olympic Games for Trinidad 800 meters, and he was very, very, very good, and he loved cross-country running. But we were the only two at that time, Angie, that was on the cross-country team, but we had a lot of track and field folks who were African-American. Matter of fact, Earl Powell, who was here yesterday, and you may have seen him honored as the Golden Fleece. Yeah, he was one of the person on the track team as well. And we had several managers, but there was a lot of folks, not a lot, but maybe 6 or 7 people. But we were close knit. So we didn't have a lot of issues in terms of in the campus, because the coach, Joe Hilton, was a great guy. You were talking about Bill Dooley. But Coach was the kind of person, was like a father figure. He would bring you to his house. And we spent the night at his house many, many times. So, and that was important to me because when I was recruited, I needed somebody who was kind of nurturing, because everybody's not that way. But so, and the coach didn't have to be real talented in running in terms of his skills and his coaching ability, because I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing. So I would tell him the kinds of things I think I needed. But he was just that kind of way. So when you think about the athletes, it wasn't a lot of us, but the ones that were here, we were close. And they were incredible people, and they did a lot of things in their lives that would, when they when they graduated from university, all of them have made tremendous commitments to their communities, and they made a tremendous difference in this world. And not only the African Americans, but also the whites as well. So we're close today. Many of us are. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Hoover. Thank you, Judge Hoover. Thank you again, Judge Hoover, for giving me a moment for this moment of to underscore what you said in introducing Willie Cooper. When I came to the university in 1963, you all heard Oliver White in his invocation talk about the era of no, including no black athletes. So when I came to the university in 1963, there had never been a black athlete at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Never. My freshman year, I believe it was 2 Africans from the African continent played on the soccer team. So that was a minor breakthrough, although it went largely unnoticed. It wasn't until the following year, and let me mention that during my freshman year, I would go to football games occasionally with no African Americans on any of our teams. And a school like the University of Michigan would come in with black athletes. And as an African American, I found myself cheering against our school because the other school had African American athletes. So it was such a wonderful thing in 1964 when Willie Cooper came along and made the freshman team and brought so much joy and pride to us all. So with that, I'll hand the microphone back to you so that everybody can really understand the impact of the first black athlete ever to wear a Carolina uniform.
I'll sit. I'm really humbled. I was a walk-on, and I came along about the time that I'm gonna keep the short thing. The time that right after Frank McGuire and Dean Smith took over, so you disturbed my thought, but anyway, there's a lot of history behind that. Dean Smith was claiming that he couldn't find black athletes that could score high enough on the college board to get accepted at Carolina. That was a big thing. And so happened that I happened to make over 850, which was over the 800 required. And they had one other guy who was from Greensboro, Lou Hudson, who Dean claimed that he tried to recruit Lou, but couldn't get him because whatever, you know, it's unless you really love the game and you want to do something for your race, you might not want to go to UNC as opposed to a school like Minnesota. So Dean put out an effort to find some black guys who could play basketball. And so I lucked out in that I went to a school that had won 72 straight basketball games under Harvey Reed. And so I got a little notoriety from that, and Dean Smith heard about it. And he said, let's send somebody down to Elm City to find out if this guy is good as Bobby Lewis. Anybody know anything about Bobby Lewis?
I remember.
Well, they came down there with a Super 8 camera, and they filmed us. Came back several times, and as it turned out that, when they went back to see Coach Smith, he said, well, he's not as good as Bobby Lewis, and I wasn't. But if you make the freshman team and you make the varsity team, I will give you a scholarship. And that gave me some hope. But I knew I wasn't as good as Bobby Lewis. And my parents, who were foster parents to me, were just farmers. They had raised 10 children of their own. And then they took me in as an adopted person and didn't have the money to send me to college. And so I was very unhappy about that. But I had had my mind set on going to either A&T or North Carolina Central. As it turned out, to make a long story short, I ended up with a full scholarship to UNC because one of my mentors was Reggie Fountain, and his uncle was L.H. Fountain. And the congressman at that time could sign off on a person whose parents were in a World War I veteran. And that's where I fit in there. And so he got his uncle to approve that scholarship. And so I went on and took the scholarship. And took a lot of pressure off of me because I didn't have to worry about, I just had to keep the C average, right? And that's about what I got. But the important thing was that I told you that I was adopted and I was troubled and I had failed the grade and the 4th grade, and I had to have help to bring my education up to snuff because I was troubled and I didn't go to school. And one of the daughters of this family that had 10 children was a teacher. And she sort of took me under her arms, under her wings, and helped me bring myself, educate myself. And so I credit her for seeing somebody who needed some help and who made the effort to get me going. And so that's kind of how I got to Carolina. Didn't have to worry about a scholarship. I went on to major in business administration, graduated, went to the Army, and became a captain in Vietnam. And so I've had Carolina has been good to me. I don't know how the Providence put all of that together. I just know that I got the benefit of it. So I know my wife is telling me to shut up. But let me just close it out with this. I had some tough times when I was out for the basketball team. I got pushed down by Larry Miller. Anybody know who Larry Miller was? And Larry told Kenny Roseman, get him off of me, because I was guarding Larry Miller, and he was a true All-American. And I gave him a fit, but anyway. So I made that team, but the atmosphere on the team was similar to what someone else has described, and that is that there was a very little contact among the players with me. Of course, I had AAT and North Carolina Central, Naval State, and so I spent not a lot of time, but I had friends there, but it was a lonesome thing for me. But I credit, well, a couple of other things. I think I have suffered a lot because I didn't have anybody else to talk to who were in the situation that I was in. And so the thing that really helped me along was the fact that this family took me in. They had 10 children, all of whom were adults at that time, and 6 of whom had gotten college degrees. And so they helped me along and motivated me. And so I owe a lot to that family. And when we went through that freshman year, they took me to Virginia, and on the way we stopped to get some dinner, and when I went in, they said, well, we could serve them, but you can't eat here. And that is, when I finally made the team, and we started going to games. When they took me to Virginia, that was probably the worst place because they called you coon. They had no respect for you. But at Carolina, I had one very, very positive thing, and that is when I finally got in that first freshman game, I had one shot that was my specialty, which was a long-ranging jump shot that went in. And the paper says that the most no one's heard in, Willow Gym at that time was when that ball went in, and the student body kind of took me under their wings. And so I didn't get a lot of problems from Carolina students, but traveling around, you ran into some of everything. And most people don't know this, but when we played Clemson, Carolina did not take me with them because it was, you gotta remember, it was 1964. And there were no other schools below the Mason-Dixon line that had black players. And so I could understand why they were going to take me down to Clemson, but that still doesn't help the hurt that I felt at that time. And so, this is another story. There's one other, and I'll shut up. And that is, after my freshman year, when I went home, I found out that the KKK had burned a cross in my foster father's yard. And my sister said that, well, that's all right. Our father sat in the front door and said, let them come back in another night, that he would take care of them. And so that was, it was a tough time. Okay, thank you.
Sir, can I hand them to her for you?
Yes.
You sure you want to do it?
Thank you so much, Brother Cooper. Are there any other questions at this time? I was drawing knives. If there are no other questions, I'd like to take this opportunity for us to give a round of applause for our pastor. I think I've covered everything. Are there any other acknowledgements from any of the other committee members? Anybody with anything heavy on your heart that you want to get off before we adjourn here?
I was going to ask Judge Maddox about still what's his name? Steele? James Steele, but not in front of this crowd, okay?
All right. Any more public questions? Well, again, we'd like to thank all of you for coming out and supporting us, and hopefully we'll be able to do this for many years to come. And that you'll continue to support us, and we'll continue to try to bring some very educational programs so that you will enjoy the time here. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Go Heels tomorrow night, and we'll see you next year. Thank you. Hello, 1 minute. Hello, can I have your attention for 1 minute? Can I have your attention for 1 moment? Hello. You all don't want to miss this. Hello. I don't know if you noticed, but when you came in, there were some mugs out on the front desk. Everyone is entitled to a mug. And right now, we only have 72. So the first 72 people in line will get one. And if you don't get one tonight, leave your name and address with them, and we'll send yours later. So if you want to get one of those, the first 72 in line, and you can get them. Otherwise, leave us your name and address, and we'll send you yours for yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for the live edition of Town Talk TV, unedited. And of course, I had my other camera going. It ran out of power. But I got almost all of the gentlemen in this beautiful story about we played basketball here at UNC-Chapel back in those 60s and turbulent time. There's so many that the rest of us came later in the 70s and 80s and not experienced. Well, we experienced some things too in a different way. Thank you so much, and of course the pre-recorded version with edits and whatnot you can see pretty soon. Loaded to my YouTube channel, TownTalkTV, and also these wonderful programs captured for the University of North Carolina's Black Alumni Reunion, for the UNC Library, Southern Culture Archives under Rose Highland-Sharpe, under that category, Black Alumni Reunion, either the Inspirational Service or Black Pioneers in some other category. I'm giving my time voluntarily to record these momentous historical programs that a lot were not recorded back in the day. Thankful to, once again, Michael Washington, who's on the other side there recording, and for all of you all around North Carolina, all around the nation, fellow Tar Heels, and those who aren't Tar Heels, those from my hometown of Moore County, North Carolina, Taylortown, Southern Pines, Pinehurst, Aberdeen, Carthage, all around the area. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. So I'm going to enjoy myself a little bit more, relax, some great comedy, a little bit of music, and head back home. Well, rest my head and then head back home. You know, the big game, the greatest game on earth, Duke, Carolina, Duke football. And it's late, so I'm not going to make that game because it's late, like 8 o'clock. I was hoping to go to the tailgate and whatnot, not to get back home. So on Sunday morning, 10 o'clock live will be the UNC Black Alumni Reunion Inspirational Service, which I am a member of officially since 2010, having been one of the speakers. Been recording since 2009, and there's some other things with the Black Pioneers services, brunches, breakfasts, dinners, and whatnot. Let me thank you. Tune in to other great programming, some new things coming up on Town Talk TV, of course, down home in the Moore County and Southern Pines community, Taylortown, throughout Ador, Pine Bluff, and other areas. And I got to give a shout out to my brother. His wife may be tuning in, Gladys, because several of Black pioneers played golf with my brother. They didn't know I was his little sister. Richard Harold Highland, shout out to you, a graduate of St. Augustine or St. Augustine Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a class of 68. And some of the Black pioneers, of course, are around his age range, of course, and where he lives over in Mecklenburg County. Some of them attend the same church, a Great Big Baptist Church, otherwise they're golf buddies. And they didn't know I was his little sister. Well. How about that? Nevertheless, as always, some way, by God's grace and mercy, if you're walking the walk, you'll be on Town Talk too. You will. Take care, and some of you all have already. Take care, and God bless. Thank you so much. By the way, what I missed on my camcorder, I got it all live. So it's all going to be spliced in. Stay tuned for that. We thank God for your presence and all that you do in your community as well. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in to Town Talk. I'm Rose Highland-Sharpe, and as always, I hope you enjoy the show. And honey, remember, some way by God's grace and mercy, if you're walking the walk, you'll be on Town Talk. Take care. God bless. Town Talk airs daily at 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. and other times noted in the evening on WYBE TV Spectrum Cable 3, Southern Pines, North Carolina, and on Rose Highland-Sharpe YouTube 24 hours a day. It is a service to the community.